All right. Well, let's see. Let me switch this over to video here. I'll stop the share. All right. Am I coming in nice and clean? Just want to say thank you to everybody for showing up. It's going to be a pretty great event, I think. I'm Nicholas Schemmel. I'm a proud member of Socialist Alternative as well as the Peoria chapter of the DSA. We've got three really incredible speakers here tonight with contributions of their own to give. But before I cede the stage to them, I just want to speak about the reason why we're holding this event for Seattle City Council member Kshama Sawant. So Kshama Sawant, who is also a member of SA and DSA, has been on the city council since 2014. In the 6 years that she's been in office, 6 or 7 years that she's been in office, she's fought incessantly for the working class, from winning the $15 minimum wage for Seattle to campaigning for community control of the police, winning a ban against chemical weapons at the height of the protest last year, a huge thing, for fighting for rent control, fighting for affordable housing, fighting for unions, social services, winning tax Amazon, right? Powerful ally of the working class. Obviously, this has made her pretty solidly an enemy of the establishment and of establishment politicians and their donors, which are massive corporations like Amazon. So during her 2019 election, Amazon alone put $1.5 million into a PAC that targeted her. But she won because all the money they spent wasn't enough to buy an election from people who want to be heard and represented. Now they're trying again with a different tactic. Last year, as we all remember, a mass movement rose up across the nation in protest against the police killing of George Floyd. Kshama publicly supported and joined the protests, and her involvement in the Black Lives Matter movement is now used as recourse for the recall campaign put up against her. On April 1st of this month, the Washington Supreme Court sided with the right wing and with big business, and they put their stamp of approval on the recall. This ruling sets a very dangerous precedent. It's a blatant attack on the right to protest, and it is an attempt to criminalize an elected official playing a leading role in working people's movements. It really does little to cover up that it's revenge for the Black Lives Matter movement. So the court upheld three trumped up charges. One, that Kshama used city resources to support tax Amazon ballot initiative before it even existed. This sets the precedent that no elected official can spearhead a grassroots movement. Two, that she led a COVID-safe march into City Hall during the Black Lives Matter movement. It's clear that this charge itself is retribution for the ongoing protests and occupations that took place during the movement. In the court's opinion, BLM was not city business despite the people of the city being involved. And three, that she led a march to the mayor's house. So this march was not led by her. It was led by the families of the victims of police shootings who have spent and still spend years or still are without justice. They invited Kshama to speak and to march with them. That doesn't matter to the court that she didn't lead it. It's the fact that she was there alongside the families and the citizens at all is criminal enough for the court. So just like we can't rely on the police, we can't rely on the courts to bring us real justice. We can only win justice by getting organized and building a working class movement. Because if the right and big business can't buy an election, they're going to try to buy the seat right out from under someone instead. And if this succeeds, we all lose across the nation. If we elect someone in our local areas, if we elect someone in Peoria, in Bloomington, in Springfield, in Champaign-Urbana, if we elect someone in Chicago that actually fights not only for us, but alongside us as well, what good is that if they get kicked out for doing exactly that? So on that note, I'd like to introduce someone who we are very fortunate to have fighting, like I said, not only for us, but alongside us as well. That's Chicago Alderman of the 25th Ward, Byron Sigcho Lopez. So I will unmute you and you can take it away.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for everybody for joining us. I think it's extremely important that we understand what is at stake in this recall campaign that is clearly being orchestrated by Amazon and all the status quo in Seattle, who have been unable to defeat working people. They have been unable to defeat the people of Seattle and Kshama on the multiple campaigns that she's being a part of. And we have to also recognize not only Kshama as a leader in Seattle, but a socialist leader who has said multiple campaigns in the national sphere. It is very clear, and as Nicholas mentioned, that Kshama has been an unequivocal and consistent socialist elected official that sided with the people of Seattle during the most difficult times in recent history. The tax for Amazon was a national campaign that Kshama, Socialist Alternative, and others have set in motion, has created an important precedent for us to tax Amazon across the country for this. Seeing Amazon operates in communities, not only here in Chicago, but across the country, where workers are denied adequate breaks. They are being put up in long shifts, these mega cycles, where they have to work over 10-hour shifts with no break, putting their even their safety conditions at risk. That's how Amazon operates. There's being very few public elected officials pushing back on Amazon and their deep pockets. And Kshama has certainly been one of those courageous elected officials who have been siding with the people in Seattle. Kshama has been the leading voice on the Fight for 15. She has been also a leader on tenant rights, and more recently, a big fight to have the right to counsel. That's another important fight that we're now fighting here in Chicago as well. This is just among the many fights that Kshama has taken with the people in Seattle and always siding with the people across the country. Ironically, and it's very important that we mention, Kshama has sided unequivocally and strongly with the Black Lives Matter movement, and to make sure that we hold police accountable, that we defund the police, and that we make sure that these services are going directly to help Black and brown communities and those vulnerable communities across Seattle and across the country. Ironically, the mayor of Seattle, who also was in a recall campaign for using tear gas and for the shameful repression of people in the city of Seattle during the times of unrest. Ironically, apparently it's constitutional to use tear gas, but is apparently ruled by the Supreme Court in Washington, subject to a recall, is standing up for the Black Lives Matter movement, is standing for working people, to tax Amazon, to fight for 15, to fight for tenant rights. Now that has become a dangerous thing. It is extremely important that we as socialists understand what is at stake. I'm really deeply concerned about even some articles that have surfaced, putting even Socialist Alternative against the Democratic Socialists of America. We're both socialist organizations. We are both socialist representatives that must be in solidarity, and be very careful with those attempts of the Democratic Party to infiltrate our spaces, to pitch us against each other and marginalize elected officials as Kshama, who are leaders in the movement, who are leaders across the country. And we must defend our movement. We must stand together in solidarity with Kshama, with Socialist Alternative in Seattle, and with our socialist movement across the city. This is not the only precedent and dangerous precedent of the use of the judicial system. When everything else fails, when billionaires and corporations cannot beat us democratically in the boot, they are going to start using the judicial branch as they please to put forward their agendas that are harming working class communities, Black, brown, Asian American communities, communities of color, white, poor communities that are today more than ever in need of strong advocates and bold platforms that put people over profit. Chevron is another corporation that is today, again, using the judicial system to persecute and harass and retaliate against an attorney in New York, Mr. Steve Dussinger, for holding Chevron accountable for their crimes in Ecuador, where they committed atrocious crimes against humanity, against human nature, and against everything that we represent as socialists. Again, there are dangerous precedents that we as socialists must take seriously. We must be vigilant and unequivocally make sure that we see what's at stake. We must stand together. Right now, we have a state of repression and barbarism. We see here in Chicago, we have a 13-year-old who was killed by police, and we're still waiting for that video that is going to come tomorrow in the public eye. We have seen the 750 murders that have affected our communities. We see the money that keeps going to police, $281.5 million, on top of the 40% of the budget that they took, that the Chicago Police Department took, plus $280 million from CARES funding. And these are the results. This is the barbarism that is going on in our communities with the complicity of many elected officials. And here, not only Republicans, but Democrats alike, who are silent and complicit. We even see President Biden, who did not even have the decency to call the family of Dante in Minnesota. This is the kind of government that we have right now. And on the other side, we have courageous leaders as Kshama in Seattle, who are holding developers accountable, who are holding corporations accountable, who is holding Jeff Bezos, the richest man of the world, accountable. And that's why they're coming after her. As socialists, and I'm going to repeat again, we have to make sure that we have the clear picture of what's going on in our communities. And we have very clear choices to make. It's going to be barbarism or it's going to be socialism. And be very careful for those democratic operatives and hacks that come to our spaces to justify it in the name of civility, in the name of respectability politics, to justify and silence leaders like Kshama. This is a time of solidarity, real solidarity. This is a time of commitment. And I urge every single member from Socialist Alternative and the Democratic Socialists of America to come together to defend Kshama and to set a precedent on building a socialist movement across the country to put people over profit. Thank you again, and let's make sure that we come out of there to support Kshama. If you have a donation, please help us with a donation. If you have time for phone banking, this is a time of solidarity. We cannot allow them, and we cannot allow the 1% to expose their will and use that bipartisan, shameful political and economic system that we have to continue to kill and commit barbaric acts in our communities. This is time of solidarity and action. This is time to support Kshama. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Byron. That was really incredible. And thank you for taking the time to join us. Wow. Up next, Anthony Walraven. He's a current co-chair of the Peoria Democratic Socialists of America, a proud union member, and someone I'm very proud to call a comrade. Anthony, whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Well, I have the unenviable task of following that. Thank you, Byron, for that. And thank you all for coming tonight to listen to this. Thank you, Nicholas, for putting this on. Just a little brief of, as Nicholas said, my name's Anthony Walraven. I'm the co-chair of the Peoria area chapter of the DSA. And I'm a member of ASME Local 3464. I work for the city of Peoria. Harry Bridges, who was a very legendary socialist and labor leader, once said that the most important word in the language of the working class is solidarity. And it's in that spirit that I come to talk to you guys about why we in downstate Illinois really need to stand with Kshama Sawant and the working class of Seattle, all those thousands of miles away from us. We here in Peoria and Springfield and Decatur and Bloomington, we've all felt the same sting of an economy that tells us our lives are only as valuable as the value we provide for bosses, owners, and shareholders. We here downstate have seen the economic devastation wrought by decisions made by corporations like Caterpillar, ADM, and Maytag that were not made in the interests of workers or communities, but instead to increase the profits of those who already had so much. And we downstate know all too well the many and various ways that the forces of reaction and capital will seek to pit the working class against each other, whether it's white supremacy, misogyny, xenophobia, homophobia, transphobia, or by making those with little fear those who have nothing. And there is no magic place in the world where the working class isn't ground down by capitalism. There is no land where the alienation that we feel towards a world that increasingly neither provides meaning or a means of support doesn't exist. And because this is true, our only hope for liberating ourselves is each other. So when people stand up as members of a working class movement, no matter where they are speaking to conditions we all experience, and they are fighting against the same enemies. Whether those wealthy corporations and moneyed interests make tractors, chemicals, or just ship things around the world and make largely crummy streaming TV shows. Such as what's happened in Seattle over the course of the last few years. Literally almost every single working class demand or gain that's been made over the last 6 years has come out of some of the ferment of things going on in Seattle. Since Kshama Sawant's election to the Seattle City Council, she's led efforts to raise the minimum wage, to tax corporations like Amazon so that social housing can be built and help to address Seattle's housing crisis. And she also spoke out very forcefully as the only ally against the militaristic tactics of the Seattle Police Department against peaceful protesters, angered last year by the murder of George Floyd, as well as demanding that money being spent on policing be spent on benefiting the working class of Seattle rather than being used to lock it up. And what has followed should be a lesson to all of us that aspire to build working class power in our own communities. An alliance of political reactionaries and wealthy corporatists have gotten together to try to recall Councilwoman Sawant and are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to do it. We as socialists should always be skeptical of those who hold public office because we know that the system as a whole is not meant to serve the interest of workers. But when people use their power to support the movement, when they use their platform to amplify the voices of the marginalized, when they serve the interests of people over money, then we have to step up to defend our own. So I come here to remind you that when the working class of Seattle wins, we win. When they lose, we lose. Amazon as a corporation is fighting against workers all across the country, from Bessemer, Alabama, to Chicago, to Seattle. We here in Central Illinois can make a powerful example and help push back against those who believe that human beings exist to allow them to take more and more. So I'm asking all of you tonight, let's help Kshama Sawant and the working class movement she represents in Seattle. And in doing so, let's remember the words of a very old, very well-used song. In our hands is placed a power greater than their hoarded gold, greater than the might of atoms, magnified 1,000-fold. We can bring to birth a new world from the ashes of the old. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Anthony. You said you had the unenviable task, but I think it's Adam who has the unenviable task because that was pretty great. So last but not least, we have Adam Heenan. He's a longtime activist and currently the vice president of the Bloomington Normal Trades and Labor Assembly. So let me find you and mute you. But again, great lead off, Anthony. Adam, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, that was awesome. I gotta say, that was the most somber version of Solidarity Forever I've ever heard. But thank you, Wally, and thank you, Byron, for all your work and introducing us tonight. Before we get started, we do have an anniversary in the room. So let's just really quickly all say in the chat, happy anniversary to Doug and Emily. Thank you all for joining us on your anniversary night. Mazel tov, indeed. There we go. There we go, right? Can you guys hear me now? We all here? Happy anniversary, comrades. So, comrades and siblings near and far, I want to start by thanking you all for attending this evening and for Nicholas for the invitation to speak at such an important event. My name is Adam Heenan, and this is my partner in Bread and Roses, Lauren Pruder. I currently serve as the Vice President of the Bloomington Normal Trades and Labor Assembly, Illinois AFL-CIO, and an engaged member of the Democratic Socialists of America. I feel honored to join you this evening to raise money for Councilor Sawant's defense fund, but we gather in the wake of a tough loss to workers at the Bessemer Amazon and in the wake of the killings of Adam Toledo and Dante Wright. And of course, the daily trauma we all feel trying to survive in a pandemic in late capitalism. And yet, I feel blessed to be with you this evening, as I'm rarely without hope when I'm with my comrades. For those whom I've yet to meet, I cut my teeth organizing alongside Byron, actually, as a high school teacher, a rank and file member of the Chicago Teachers Union. I taught social studies for 12 years on the southwest side of Chicago before coming to central Illinois. And despite what a number of people believe, our issues are not so different. We fight neoliberalism in Chicago, and we fight neoliberalism in Decatur. We fight white supremacy in Algonquin, and we fight white supremacy in Pekin. We fight for housing in Normal and Cairo, for climate justice and healthcare, Springfield, Quad Cities, Kankakee, and Rockford. We must never stop organizing in rural America. That's what the liberals do, and that's why we're in this mess now. And if the issues aren't so different, then the solutions should look pretty similar too. And that's why we're here tonight. See, socialists, we understand struggle, and we're not rich, but we know how to fight smart with the resources we have, so long as we are organized. For socialists, our ideology, our vision of a world without masters guides our strategies, and our tactics flow from the needs of those strategies. Let me say it differently. Ideology outlines strategy, which determine our tactics. Every political action we take must spawn from our socialist ideology, from the macro to the micro. We know this as praxis. During my time in the CTU, our time in the CTU, led by the magnanimous Karen Jennings Lewis, may she rest in peace, because she lived in power, as Vice President Davis Gates says. During my time in the CTU, we let our ideology determine our direction. We asked, what are the schools Chicago students deserve? And our vision led us all the way through to our tactics. We'd say, we want schools that look more like camp and less like prison. And to get there, we'd brainstorm and deliberate and debate it out internally. But we always said, if we win, then it's because we moved together as a body on 3 principles of winning in collective action. We always asked ourselves, does it unify us? Does it strengthen us? And does it build our power? And Karen would always ask these questions to the House of Delegates, the 800-member body of educators and support staff, and we'd all reply yes in unison to celebrate this powerful moment of solidarity, the recognition of committing ourselves to doing something together that draws from our collective ideology, our vision for a world that can be. So tonight I'm asking you all to join me, and that means I'd like to take yourselves off mute. So do what you got to do to take everybody off mute, Nicholas. Yeah?
You'll have to give me a moment, but I'll arrange it. I got you. Give me 1 second here.
Okay. Tonight, I'm asking all of you to join me and Lauren. And that means I'd like you to take yourselves off mute and confirm for us right now. Does defending Kshama Sawant unify us? Yes.
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 There you go.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Does defending Kshama Sawant strengthen us?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Does defending Kshama Sawant build our power? Yes.
Yes.
And we know it does these things because defending Kshama Sawant sends the clearest message of all to Amazon, the biggest bully in the room. Your time on the throne is running out. You cannot buy candidates and seats. And while history may be on your side, the future, full of bread and roses, is reserved for the working class so long as we fight for it together. There's fortitude in solidarity. Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. That was that was powerful. And happy anniversary to Doug and Emily as well. Very, very sweet of you to point that out. I just, again, wow. We've had some incredible contributions from Adam, from Blake Baxter said we got goosebumps in the house. Absolutely. From Adam, from Anthony, from Byron, who I believe had to go. At least I don't see him in participants anymore. So now it's my job to tie it all back in to a demand here, or a plea. So Kshama's council seat, and the people of Seattle's council seat really, is about amplifying these movements that we've been talking about. From bringing them into the halls of governance and forcing big business and the establishment to confront them. I'll ask real quick if we can hold off on the donations. I want to be able to track them. So if we could just hang on, and then we'll make those asks. So from bringing people into the halls of governance and forcing big business and the establishment to confront them, it's all about amplifying these movements. So as the pandemic has continued to impoverish, kill, and isolate us all across the world, we've seen billionaires and companies get richer specifically because of it. As the pandemic is suppressed over the coming, years, months, organized movements will be key to winning demands for working people, especially working people of color. Victories that our movements have won are under attack, especially victories out of the Black Lives Matter movement. It's important that we get organized, not just to defend Kshama's seat, but to build fighting movements that can win more gains for working people. The campaign against the recall isn't about keeping her seat that she was elected to. That's obviously a part of it, but it's about what we can do with that seat and with any seat that we are able to elect anywhere. We're using it to fight for unions. We're using it to fight against police violence, to fight for rent control, to fight for green energy. We've won major victories because of it. And we've organized the working class because of it. Rather, we've won those victories because we've organized the working class through that seat. So getting organized means coming together and determining the sacrifices we can make towards our common goals. Fighting for key demands of the Black Lives Matter movement, community control of the police, taxing big corporations and the wealthy to build new units of permanently affordable housing that are actually quality and not just some shit that they threw together because they can't be bothered to actually care about the people. But we can't do that without the help of others, however they can help. So in a second here, I'm going to start calling out numbers. You might have already had a number in your head that you think about donating. You might have already mentioned how much you're willing to donate. If you already mentioned it, go ahead and just mention it when I call that number again. We'll count from there. So you might have a number in your head as well. I'd encourage you to dig as deep as you can and think about what's at stake here and how big of a sacrifice you can really make. The right-wing recall is an open attack on all of our movements. And every dollar that you donate isn't just to defend a council seat, like I said. It's an investment in building movements in the years and months to come. So I'll be calling out a bunch of those numbers. If you can't make your donation at once, or all at once, you can break it up into monthly chunks. So like a $300 one or whatever, it could be 100 over 3 months or whatever. I'm posting a link in the chat now. I should probably actually post it in the chat, not in my notepad. So you can make your donations through that, through the website. I'm going to start right at the top. I'm going to make the big ask right away. Can anybody give $500? Amazon's earnings per share have risen from $23 at the start of 2020 to $41 at the end. They've profited almost twice as much because of the pandemic, directly because of the pandemic. And they continue to reap more money every minute it continues. If they alone could throw away $1.5 million on a city council candidate, or to stop a city council candidate, then how far do you think they'll go now? Kshama threatens their motives directly through the Tax Amazon campaign that she won. Through supporting unions like the one in Bessemer, they broke every single rule to stop, and demanding actual living wage for the workers, not just $15 an hour with no benefits and a job that tries to kill you. Actual living wages. With the pandemic we're all still going through, using services like Amazon are a given. But they turn around, take that profit, and they use it to make our lives further out of our own control by funding opposition candidates, harassing workers to stop them from unionizing, by taking them off the line to attend anti-union meetings because they asked for a bathroom break, and then plastering the stalls that they can't get a break to use to tell them Amazon is like a family. That's what they're using that money for. So if you've been fortunate enough over the last year to retain a job, to not have your stimulus eaten immediately by rent and bills, I'm going to ask you to make a big sacrifice today. Who can donate $500 today to fight against companies who are fighting workers from having a say, to fight against profiting a disease that has killed over 500,000 and rising in the US alone? Thank you, Alan Axelrod. I know it's not an easy donate, it's a sacrifice. We're all making these sacrifices, and that's really incredible. I'm going to move down now. 250. Can anybody, spare $250 for Kshama Sawant to help make sure that we keep that seat in Seattle? Last year, we saw that the Black Lives Matter movement exploded across the nation, even across the world, in the wake of the police killing of George Floyd. It was the largest protest in US history, and it reached, like I said, across the ocean. In Seattle, it made them the first city in the nation to ban the police use of less lethal weapons like tear gas, blast balls, and rubber bullets. That's something that Kshama fought for. The 3 causes for recall approved by Washington Supreme Court are all related to her support and involvement for Black Lives Matter. And since that movement, calls for reform, calls for defunding, change of any kind have languished. They've been rejected or walked back on. Minneapolis, this very same city that sparked the movement last year. The city that the police killed George Floyd. Last Sunday, Dante Wright was shot and killed by an officer after being pulled over for having an air freshener hanging in his rearview mirror. As Byron mentioned, a 13-year-old boy was shot and killed. We need to have people in office who fight to put the police in community approval. We need officials who are right alongside us. This is an active struggle that we are in. If you can you give $250 to help win this community control of the police? Thank you, Garrett. Thank you. Moving along, $100. Right wingers and those who don't want movements to win demands like community control of the police and taxing the rich, they tear down posters, they tear down flyers, they throw out leaflets, they do everything they can to stop the message from being heard because they know that those ideas are popular. They know that Medicare for all is a popular idea. They know that rent control is a popular idea. They know that community control and stopping police violence is a popular idea. They know that they're not just popular ideas, but they are necessary goals to achieve. And they tear down those posters, they tear down those flyers, they stop the message from being heard however they can. That means it's a race to constantly keep posters and other flyers and information up in Seattle in order to reach supporters and get them active and let them know that they are not isolated, which is where they where the right wants to keep them. These posters are an effective tool to let a community know that they're not alone in their struggle and things can be different if they fight for it. To buy waterproof posters costs $2 a piece. Who can donate $100 to buy 50 posters to help reach more supporters and more people and engage more people? I'm putting in 100 as well. I'll type it in just so it's official. Just because I'm a little hard up myself. But $50. Can anybody do $50? Because the climate crisis is here. We can see its effects more and more every year. And I just want to say, Matt Wilder mentioned in the chat, he's been keeping track. We have $1,130 pledged so far. And then an extra 100 between Adam and Blake. So thank you everybody so far. But we can see the climate, and Lauren, my bad, sorry, you're right. It says it right in the name. Climate crisis is here. The wildfires in California they were ongoing last year, going to be going this year, going to be going the next year. Tropical storms in the Gulf have only been getting more and more severe. And recently in Texas, there's a severe snowstorm that we've all heard about, which has knocked out power across the state. These power outages and massive bills have disproportionately affected people of color. Reliance on fossil fuels and underfunded infrastructure also led to a dangerous gas fire in the Central District. Nobody was hurt, but problems run deeper than that. So we need things like a Green New Deal for working people to fight not only for climate justice, but for racial justice as well. These things are intertwined and are inextricable from each other. 90% of people receiving food deliveries in Austin during the blackout were Black or Latino. Who can give $50 or more to help end all fossil fuel emissions by 2030? Build green affordable homes, massively expand public transit, and create thousands of clean energy jobs paid for by taxing the rich. All right. Thank you, Emily, and for attending. I'm going to say 27, like she just donated $27, $15, 10, 5, few red cents that you're able to scrape up. If you can donate anything at all. It's not about how much you're donating. It's not about giving the biggest amount you can. It's incredibly appreciated. Yeah, thank you for getting my pun, Adam. It's not about how much you're giving, but about what you can do for the cause. $27 is a huge amount. $10 is a huge amount. We're up to what? $28 away from, or actually $18 away from hitting 1,300. So we're all working class, we all struggle, and we all try our damnedest to make ends meet by the next time rent hits. And that's where we're fighting the fight we're in. That's why we all need to work together, link arms, and push back against the ruling class. So whatever you can spare, no matter what it is, it shows that we are willing to come together and fight and represent a movement of people that's worth more than any Amazon-funded PAC. It shows that it's not just the deepest pockets that win and win again at our expense. So if you can't donate, but you want to help in any way you can, the Kshama Solidarity campaign, is holding phone banking sessions every Tuesday and Sunday night. We want to talk to everyone in the ward she represents and convince them to reject the recall if they're not on board already, and to measure our support. The best way to do that under normal circumstances is knock on every door. That's not something we can do, even if we're in that city. And that's not something that we could do even if we're in that city because of the pandemic. So the best way to do this right now, to support this, if you can't donate, is to phone bank. Making calls to every phone number we have in the district, in addition to the regular phone banks on weeknights. It's important to remember this is the ward that voted for her. So there's already a lot of supporters, but we need to understand exactly what the support is. And if they're not already against it, to tell them about the recall campaign and what it actually means. We also have big rallies on Sunday, usually with a guest speaker, but the phone banking is every Tuesday and every Sunday. And I'm going to post the link to the events in the chat if you're interested in doing any of that. It seems like we've come out to $1,302, and that's an incredible amount. And I want to thank every single person who showed up and was able to give, whatever they could, because every single one of those dollars means an incredible amount to what we're able to achieve in Seattle, in Chicago, in Peoria, Bloomington, Normal, Champaign-Urbana, Springfield, across Central Illinois. I'm not going to name every city, but for everybody across the nation, this is really a huge, huge thing. I want to thank everyone for attending as well. And I really want to thank Byron, Adam, and Anthony for all giving excellent, excellent contributions. As Adam just said in the chat, when socialists are under attack, what do? We stand up and we fight back. Thank you, everybody.